साधन भैया।
भैया नमस्ते।
बहुत स्वागत है। तो हम सभी साधन भैया से तो परिचित ही हैं, और फिर भी एक बार और अभी मैं थोड़ा हिंदी में बात करूंगा, साधन भैया के साथ हम हिंदी में बात करेंगे। फिर हम ये रेगुलर सेशन को हम शुरू करेंगे। साधन भैया सभी लोग जानते ही हैं, बाबा जी के साथ में 22 साल वो रहे। और मैं उनको अपने से अ, हर हर मामले में अपने से अग्रणी पाता हूँ, अग्रज भी। और इस इंग्लिश वाले ट्रांसलेशन के काम में उनसे मैं समय समय पर जो है कॉन्सेप्चुअल अंडरस्टैंडिंग को लेके उनकी गाइडेंस मेरे को मिलती रही है। तो उसके लिए बहुत कृतज्ञता है। तो साधन भैया, आपका बहुत स्वागत है इस कार्यक्रम में। जी भैया।
शुरू हो जाए। तो
बिल्कुल, शुरू हो जाइए।
सभी को नमस्ते। और दर्शन के प्रणेता पूज्य बाबा नागराज जी को नमन करता हूँ। उनके प्रति कृतज्ञता ज्ञापित करता हूँ। ये बहुत खुशी की बात है कि इस दर्शन को अंग्रेजी भाषा में अनुवाद करने का एक बीड़ा उठाया गया है। बहुत ही श्रम साध्य कार्य है। बहुत समय लगता है। और चूंकि पहली बार शब्दों को परिभाषित किया जा रहा है इस भाषा में, अंग्रेजी भाषा में, इसलिए वो एक ऐसी चीज बन जाएगी जो बार बार आगे प्रयोग होगी, इसलिए इसमें समय भी ज्यादा लग रहा है। और एक शब्द हम कोई दे दे रहे हैं तो वो आगे दूसरे जगह पर दूसरे अर्थ में नहीं प्रयोग होगा, उसका भी ध्यान रखना है। और ये भी कोशिश किया जा रहा है कि अभी जो प्रचलित अंग्रेजी भाषा में जो अर्थ है उसके समीप वाले शब्दों को लें। तो बहुत ज्यादा बधाई पूरी टीम को कि ये लोग इतनी मेहनत कर रहे हैं और रोज लगभग रोज अभ्यास कर रहे हैं, और एक डेढ़ पेज तो एक एवरेज मुझे लगता है कि इतना होगा। और इससे एक चीज तो बहुत पक्की होगी कि जो लोग उसमें लगे हैं उनमें बहुत अच्छा डिस्कशन हो रहा है। एक एक वस्तु को स्पष्ट करने में उनकी जो स्पष्टता है वो अच्छी हो रही है। तो एक बड़ी टीम बन रही है धीरे धीरे, जो इस दर्शन के कारक वाहक बन के इसको दर्शन को आगे ले जाएंगे। और बहुत खुशी की बात है कि उसमें युवा पीढ़ी जुड़ गई है। तो अगले 25 30 50 सालों तक के लिए हमारे पास वो फोर्स तैयार हो गया है जो इस दर्शन के धारक वाहक बनेगा। तो जितने भी लोग इसमें भाग ले रहे हैं उन सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, उनको बहुत बहुत साधुवाद। और बहुत ज्यादा मैं सराहना करता हूँ उनके इस साहस के लिए, क्योंकि इन सब चीजों में गलतियां हो सकती है। और ऐसी गलतियों से घबराना नहीं चाहिए, क्योंकि हम एक गलती करेंगे तो आगे जो है उसको सुधारने के लिए 10 अच्छे लोग आएंगे। तो ये रास्ता और ये अप्रोच लेना चाहिए कि गलती है वो अच्छी बात है। आगे अधिक लोगों को अवसर मिलेगा इसको सुधारने। तो सभी को बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बधाई इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल होने की।
धन्यवाद साधन भैया, बहुत अच्छा लगा। अगर कोई अभी जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, कुछ साधन भैया के लिए कुछ क्वेश्चन हो, देन फिर उनको हम फ्री कर देंगे, है ना। साधन भैया के लिए एनीबडी वांट्स टू आस्क एनीथिंग? ठीक है
बढ़िया।
साधन भैया,
मिलेंगे।
है ना।
नमस्ते।
मिलेंगे, नमस्ते। बहुत धन्यवाद। So, welcome again. So today we are having our session number 10 of Manav Vyavhar Darshan translation. So this will be so here Vinayak and Nivita are going to continue with the chapter number 3. So we are doing this chapter called the holistic view of the universe, and we have understood a number of concepts. This is a rather um, quite an involved chapter, which basically gives overall concepts of various things. We have learned that omnipotence is an entity in which all the matter is saturated, which is immersed, soaked, and surrounded. It's a non-activity, it is uniform energy, it is omnipresent, and it is complete. And the matter is actually energized and it has inherent impulsion to act. And it is active and thereby expressing relative energy. It has direction for completeness, being saturated in the something which is complete. And so there is coexistence between matter and the omnipotence. And this coexistence is not just between matter and omnipotence. There is coexistence in matter and matter also, right? And therefore, the matter actually condenses, comes together, cohabits, and leading to certain statuses of form, attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma, which we call Roop Gun Swabhav Dharma. So when matter is coming together, the one form of the matter coming together is in the form of wholeness, and the second is in the form of completeness, right? So an atom is the basic building block of the matter, and there are various kinds of atoms, and one of the kind of atom is the constitutionally complete atom, which we are calling G1, which is responsible for exhibiting consciousness, right? And then in the process of expressing of wholeness, we see that all the range of these atoms are there and how they combine into molecules and then molecular forms, then biological forms, and then you have the all the range of biological orders, and then these insects and crawlies and flies and the animal order entities, right, which made of Jivan and body, and finally knowledge order. So that is all basically is the range of whole universe. So this chapter is about giving a holistic view of the universe, seeing that how this thing is tied with the essential idea of coexistence and with the thread of purpose for completeness that is there, and the possibility of realizing this completeness in human being. And in the absence of not achieving this completeness, there is only one path for humans is to basically have the decline, right? Which we are already seeing that we are actually uh, declining and are cutting our own roots, right? So you see that if we cut our whole roots, it all basically collapses back to material order, and then again the journey begins for completeness. So we can actually stop on our tracks and change our direction. That's the message this darshan is giving. So here's welcoming Bhaiya again, and please lead us through the chapter, uh, Vinayak Bhaiya.
Right, Via. Thank you. Uh, I shall begin my reading, and uh, like always, I mean, looking forward to the feedback also, Rakesh Bhaiya, about where uh, like things have not been as precise. And I think this process is what is fun. Like for one to be able to understand the text better. And thank you for the opportunity again. So starting from Rashmi, where we were discussing the last time. Um, so, Bhaiya, I just uh, take the leverage. Am I the co-host? I'll also share my screen. I want to put the
Yeah,
time.
so I will actually unshare it and then you can share it. So just a moment, let me make you co-host.
So I was thinking I'll start off with the diagram where I'm just explaining uh, the next line, and then we could come back to Kiran, what we were talking about.
So you are co-host now, yeah.
Right. So I was just thinking that I would start off with what Babaji has written about light, or illumination rather, uh, which is Rashmi, and then move on to what the paribhasha of Kiran is. So, Rashmi, he explains, this is, I'll just read it out. It's the primary, secondary, and propagative image of a heated object is illumination. The primary, secondary, and propagative image of a heated object is illumination. And when I read the definition of a ray or kiran, ray refers to the image of a heated object on an opaque object, where heat is the fire emitted from that object. So, like I tried to share the last time as well, uh, a heated object, which is the sun, would is my cursor visible here?
Yes, your cursor is visible.
So a heated object, um, there's an image of this heated object that is created on the outermost particle of the Earth's atmosphere, which is, the the external most opaque object with respect to the Earth and the sun. So the image that is created on this external most particle is an image that is not being transferred through a wave or through a particle coming from the sun to this particle. It's it's an image that is forming instantly. So that image is essentially called tap bim ka pratibim, or the primary image of the heated object. Now, that's the single arrow signifying there is now there is really no arrow. There's nothing coming. Because there is vyapak in the space between the external most particle of the Earth's atmosphere, the external most unit of the Earth's atmosphere, and the sun, which is why the sun's image is directly formed on that particle, because space has the faculty of complete transparency, or pardarshita, like how they call it. So now, when this particle has the image of the sun and also has its own image, this particle, which is signified with the double dash on the arrow, this other particle in the Earth's atmosphere now has an image of the sun directly, of this particle also, and of the image that this particle has of the sun as well. So if we're considering just the number of images that are forming on this particle, it includes the image of the sun on this particle that's coming directly, like along with the image of this particle. So this particle is receiving an amalgamation of images. Now the first step is called pratibim. The second step is called anubim. And if we consider this particle, the third one, which is signified by the 3 dashes on the arrow, this particle now has images of the sun directly, of this particle itself, and along with that, the image that is formed on this particle of the sun and of this particle along with that, and then the images that are formed on this particle, of the sun, of this particle. So basically a composition of multiple images, and that's what's called pratyanubim, or the propagative image. So um, a ray refers to the image of a heated object on an opaque object. So the image that was formed on this particle of the sun was the ray. But the composition of the primary, the secondary, and the propagative images of the heated object is the illumination. So the uh, composition of the primary, secondary, and the tertiary images, the propagative images on these three particles of a heated object creates an illumination which is the color of our sky, and which essentially is Rashmi that Babaji explains. So this slightly differs from what science is saying, where a particle is coming from the earth either in the form of a wave or in packets of energy, and sort of illuminating the earth. Just reaching the earth as light. So likewise, coming back to the definition, so I can stop my sharing there if you think this is. So Rakesh, could you share the book now?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. That was a good uh, thing. Just a moment. Yeah. So you want me to go to the next slide, next page?
At Kiran Bhaiya.
Okay. Yeah.
So, right. So coming to the next line where it says, where heat is the fire emitted from that object. So um, the just a minute here. I'm unable to see the book. I'll just zoom in a little.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the yeah. Now the ray is the image that's created on the opaque object, and the heat is the fire emitted from that object. Now, heat, in essence, is being transferred. Now, I'd just like to share my understanding of this point where, um, you know, the heated object and the externalmost particle of the Earth's atmosphere now also interact in another way where, because the sun in darshan is being called a lesser evolved planet than the earth is, hence the agitated particles of the sun's atmosphere also agitate the externalmost particle of the earth's atmosphere. But because the earth is a more evolved planet, the multiple particles of the Earth's atmosphere now try and absorb this agitation. And in the process, when the agitated particle of the sun is now agitating the Earth's externalmost particle of the Earth's atmosphere, it starts vibrating at a higher speed, or essentially emitting more heat. That heat is now further absorbed by the other particles around it, which is basically a part of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, because we are surrounded with this blanket of these unlimited particles in the Earth's atmosphere, which are absorbing the agitation coming from a lesser evolved sun, it is because of that that we are able to live on the Earth's crust. So when the heat that is transferred from the sun to the externalmost particle of the Earth's atmosphere, there is absolutely no loss in the heat. There is absolutely no loss in the energy. The loss starts beginning when the Earth's atmosphere, like in the Earth's atmosphere, where now this particle is transferring the heat to the other particles all the way down to the Earth's crust. And which is why the heat is extremely diffused by the extremely reduced by the time it reaches the Earth's crust. So the just to like mention again, the image of the sun is exact because of the glory of space. It's completely transparent, and hence the perfect image is formed. There is absolutely no loss in the energy or the level of agitation between the externalmost particle of the sun's atmosphere, and the externalmost particle of the Earth's atmosphere. In between, there is no heat, there is no energy. But the energy is transferred just as it is to the externalmost particle of the Earth's atmosphere. And from then on, because there are so many particles that are in close proximity to each other, that heat gets transferred. So I'd like to move forward.
Yeah.
Reflective and receptive gemstones that are Kiran Stravi and Kiran Grahi Mani. So gemstones that diffuse rays are referred to as reflective, while gemstones that absorb rays are referred to as receptive. So Babaji is just laying it out like Rakesh Bhai mentioned, that he's mentioning the essential aspects of nature, and the gemstones that essentially spread the light over a larger area by diffusing it further are referred to as reflective, while the ones that absorb are referred to as receptive. I think it's fairly clear. So the activity of rays and radiation is differentiated by the transparency or opacity of the medium. So if the medium is transparent, rays and radiations will be diffused, and they would pass through and become heightened, like they would spread further. And if it's opaque, it would just absorb it. So the activity of rays and radiation is dependent on the transparency of the medium, whether how transparent or opaque it is. So that means the transparency or opaqueness of the medium alters the activity of the rays and radiation, is what is being said, in other words. Radiation, that is Vikiran, refers the emission caused by the inherent heat in an object is referred to as radiation. So from what I remember, I hope I'm correct here. Babaji has mentioned radiation in those particles where the particle is, I want to say heavy, but I could be wrong here. Now, the particle from the outer orbits of the atom is is travels to the nucleus of the atom, and in that process gets emitted through the nucleus. This process produces internal heat. There's internal heat, which is why the particle gets emitted from the nucleus. And this is what is being referred to as Vikiran over here. Right. Likewise, Rashmi we spoke about is the illumination in the sky that we see, and that is what is being called Prakash in Hindi. So I mean, the light or Prakash is the image of the object. Sorry, image of the object is referred to as light. Not Rashmi. Sorry, I stand corrected. Light or Prakash is the image of the object. Now, the image of the object is of, its shape and its span, but the image of the object is also of its attributes, is also of, its participation in, or its activity that it's performing. So the image, when Babaji is saying कि इकाई प्रकाशमान है, he's referring to the roop, that is the form, and along with it, the attributes, the intrinsic nature, and its innateness. All of it are like when two entities are interacting, the second is forming an image as a accumulation of all of these, of its form, of its attributes, of its intrinsic nature, and the innateness. So, light is image of the object is referred to as light. The effects of rays and radiation, whether they're nurturing or exploitative, depends on their usage. It is evident that nurturing occurs through natural means, while it has been proven that exploitation arises from radiation experiments conducted by deluded humans. So, like I mentioned the last time as well, I'd just like to share again that the other three orders, Madhyas Darshan is essentially proposing that the other three orders are in a state of coexistence, and it is human intervention that can further make this coexistence more prosperous. But human intervention could also push this towards decline to an extent that the earth becomes a sun again, like becomes a sun. So the idea that um, the radiations that are produced due to nuclear tests, or through fission and fusion, is a very major cause of global warming. Is what, as far as I remember, is was shared by Babaji, but I could be wrong here. So it's through the experiments conducted by deluded humans that the effect of rays and radiations is exploitative for nature. But if the same radioactive element is present inside the Earth's crust, where it's supposed to be, where where we should let it be, um, the particle would be performing its role and helping Earth evolve further to a more prosperous state. To a more prosperous state. It's us who's putting it elsewhere and causing the radiation and essentially harming the Earth's crust. So Babaji, just to mention over here, has mentioned that everything that is required by a human is present on the Earth's crust. So moving forward, so just to mention another point, it's the three orders are like when they interact, the Srishti, the the universe would only move in, uh, be are designed for ascension, are designed to move upwards and evolve further. And humans, because they have the free will, they could push it towards either way. They could create and disrupt order. So, reading further, the body, which is composed of a large quantity of matter with space all around it, is referred to as planet. Every planet is in a state of zero attraction in space, and the position of each planet is determined by its motion in space. So I'm also, because Rakesh, we have not had I've not been participating in the English translation. I slightly understand this differently. Please let me know where to correct myself. I feel the body, which is composed of a large quantity of matter with space all around it, is referred to as planet, is fairly straightforward. Now, every planet is in a state of zero attraction in space, right? And the position of each planet is determined by its motion in space. The Hindi line reads that इकाई ओके प्रत्येक ग्रह आकाश में शून्याकर्षण की स्थिति में है, ऐसी हर इकाई अर्थात ग्रहगोल आकाश में अपनी गति के अनुसार स्थिति है. So the line in English reads that the position of each planet is determined by its motion in space. What I understand by the position over here is the state of evolution of the planet is dependent on its participation in space. This motion is for me the participation, and the position for me is the state to which the planet has evolved, which is going to be discussed further on in the chapter. So, coming back to the concept of zero attraction. Zero attraction is the faculty of units that are imbued in space to be at the precise distance which is neither too close nor too far. So hence the planets around the sun or the moon around the earth are is in a state of zero attraction, where they would continue to revolve around the other without ever colliding with the center that they're revolving around. Now, can we say that satellites that we shoot up in space are in a state of zero attraction? When the satellite gets the initial thrust after it sheds off the dead weight, and the initial thrust is given to sort of position it in the orbit that is perfectly positioned so that the Earth's gravity can keep it in orbit. Now, that thrust, that initial thrust, does keep the satellite in orbit for a certain period of time until the satellite now starts moving away. But the moon is in a state of zero attraction, which is being called Shunya Akarshan over here. Likewise, when we look at atoms, the particles in the external most, like in the orbits that are outside the center or the nucleus, are in a state of zero attraction and are not going to collide while revolving with the nucleus. So just to read the line again, the body which is composed of large quantity of matter with space all around it is referred to as planet. Every planet is in a state of zero attraction in space, and the position of each planet is determined by its motion in space. So units in a positive attraction state are attracted to something, and units in a negative attraction state attract something, while units in zero attraction state are independent. So Dhanakarshan, as we understand in the darshan, is a unit in the state of Dhanakarshan, is a unit which needs more particles to reach the most stable organization. The particles that are in a state of Renakarshan or negative attraction, they need to lose certain particles to evolve to that perfect number, which is the stable organization of an atom. When the particle reaches this precise number of particles, which is 61, it gets in a state of zero attraction. And like we call it in the darshan, it's a state of akarshan vikarshan se mukti, and like bharbandhan se mukti. So all the particles that essentially need more particles are in a state of positive attraction, and the particles that need to lose particles to get to the most stable form and have the perfect 61, which has one particle in the center and the others as you know in like 2, 8, 16, 2, 8, 16, and 32. So in that composition, they need to lose the particles and get to a point of zero attraction. The weight of an object is dependent on the attraction between the object and another entity. This attraction between two entities depends on their mutuality. The mutuality, in turn, depends on the smallness.
Can you read from the Bhaiya, can you read from the screen?
Sorry. The weight depends on attraction. Attraction depends on mutuality. Mutuality depends on smallness or bigness. Smallness or bigness depends on composition and relative energies. Composition and relative energies depend on activity. Activity depends on matter, and matter's development or decline depends on righteous utilization or misuse of relative energy. So my weight is how much the earth attracts my mass. So my body is composed of padarth or matter that essentially is not in a state of zero attraction, and which is why the gravity has a force on my body, and hence I can walk on earth. Likewise, so like we discussed in the previous point, a particle that has the perfect organization and constitution is in a state of zero attraction and in a sense has weightlessness. Moving forward, attraction depends on mutuality. So the moment there are two entities in mutuality, there is going to be either some attraction or repulsion, and that's going to be their participation in the vicinity of each other. So the mutuality depends on the smallness or bigness. So if there is attraction, the bigger entity will attract the smaller entity, and repulsion also likewise. The smallness or bigness is dependent on the composition and relative energies accordingly. The composition of the atom will define the effect that it will have on the other, and that's the relative energy. Now, composition and relative energy again depends on the activity of the atom, and activity depends on the type of matter it is, or like the type of atom it is. And how much how righteously I utilize this relative energy when in the vicinity of how righteously I utilize. So when we're talking about atoms, how righteously another atom utilizes this effect from the other particle helps it evolve to the state of 61 particles where it's now in a state of zero attraction. Likewise, because the Hindi shabd over here is padarth, the line reads क्रिया पदार्थ से और पदार्थ का ह्रास एवं विकास सापेक्ष ऊर्जा के सदुपयोग एवं दुरुपयोग से सापेक्षित है. So how I would understand this, please let me know where to correct myself. But here, padarth is not just matter in the sense it's not just the material order. It also applies to all other orders. And in the case of the human order, when I am now in the vicinity of an entity that is more evolved, and I am now, I can experience some effect of, the attributes of the other evolved entity. It's for me to righteously utilize, that effect, which is basically going to inspire me for further evolution. Likewise, if I misuse this, this effect of the other evolved entity, I could move towards decline. So this padarth is being referred to as all the orders, according to me. So the entire matter is saturated and contained within absolute energy. And the state and motion of the whole universe is within this absolute energy. In the sessions also, its matter is essentially imbued in absolute energy, and it's saturated and contained within it. Each matter is in a state of sthiti and gati. So there is a state that it's in, and according to that state of evolution, it is participating and has an activity in its surrounding. So all of it is contained within this absolute energy, and matter and particles with all their states and motion are contained within this absolute energy, is what this point is trying to say. I'm sorry. Each impulsion gives rise to relative energy. So the word for impulsion is cheshtha, and mool cheshtha is the inherent impulsion. So, like we discussed the last time, because the particle is imbued in space, is contained in it, is saturated in it, saturated by it, each particle is inspired to act. And this inspiration to act is the mool cheshtha, the inherent impulsion. This inherent impulsion is devoid of any other external pressure. It's a pressure that's created within the entity by itself, because space by itself does not exert any pressure. So, which gets us to the next point, which says inherent impulsion. Inherent impulsion refers to the activity in the atomic state of matter that is irrespective of environmental pressure. So each impulsion, like the line up there read, each impulsion gives rise to relative energy. Now, inherent impulsion is due to absolute energy. Without any external environmental pressure, there is this inherent impulsion for matter to act. And that is what is called mool cheshtha. That's the most elemental, impulsion. But there is an impulsion that occurs due to the environmental pressure, and that is referred to as relative energy, which we spoke about the last time, which we can observe in the form of pressure, heat, electricity, field. Like when two units interact, there is relative energy, and that's called cheshtha. So every cheshtha, every impulsion gives rise to some relative energy. So it's due to the inherent impulsion that every entity, every unit is bound to act and, in a sense, have effort, motion, and result, or shram, gati, and parinam, which is the mool cheshtha. The complete emergence of the universe on a planet can only occur when it becomes enriched with all necessary elements such as ras and upras and air. Thus, there are infinite planets in limitless space, which can be in completely developed Thus, there are infinite planets in limitless space, which can be in completely developed, half developed, underdeveloped, and undeveloped statuses, according to their stage of evolution. The evidence of the pressure of the presence of ras and upras is in the form of chemical activities and their grandeur. So, as Babaji explains the evolution of Earth, he mentions that the the least evolved planet would be one where an atom is unable to um, withhold its organization and composition. Hence, maybe in the sun, where the helium atom just is unable to maintain its form and disrupts into ions. Gradually, the planets evolved to a state where now atoms are able to stay stable and in like further evolved where the atoms form molecules. These molecules now become more complex and form Rus and Uprus. So the idea that the hydrogen and the oxygen atom have are able to maintain their composition and come together and form the first rasayan, that is water, according to Babaji. Rasayan is a chemical. So the first chemical, that is water, and this water now also gets in nitrogen, also gets in potassium, and forms proteins and forms the DNA, and sort of keeps forming more complex molecules, and hence forms the mitochondria, the nucleus, the other parts of the cell, and the cell is formed. Likewise, the cell now multiplies and gives rise to the plant order, and the plant order then further evolves to the animal order, and likewise the human order. So like Babaji mentions, that the complete emergence of the universe on a planet can only occur when it becomes enriched with all necessary elements of the Rus and Upras, along with the air. Now, when all of these come about, that's when you reach a stage of the completely developed, most evolved planet. And when there is chemical activity on a planet, that's when you get evidence of the presence of Rus and Upras. The material order represents the undeveloped universe, which includes all soils, rocks, gemstones, and metals. The biological order represents the undeveloped universe, which includes all vegetation. The animal order represents the half-developed universe, which includes all oviparous and viviparous beings other than humans. So the mammals that uh, the andaj and the pindaj, the uh, animals that produce eggs, and the ones that are mammals. The knowledge order represents the completely developed universe. It's necessary to be clear that the underdeveloped universe contains the undeveloped universe. The half developed universe contains the underdeveloped and the undeveloped. And the completely developed universe contains the half developed, underdeveloped, and the undeveloped universe. So the higher value contains the lower value is a principle that applies throughout the through coexistentialism. It's been mentioned over and over again, and it helps us understand things at many different levels. So likewise, a more evolved planet would include uh, the the aspects of the lesser developed planets or universe. So consequently, the higher order universe includes the attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma of the lower order universe. So, like Babaji is mentioning, that the material order is present in the undeveloped, and likewise, likewise, the planets evolve, and the plant order emerges, and the biological order emerges, and the animal order, and then the human order. So, when we come to innateness, I would elaborate on this point. But the idea is that the human order includes the innateness and the attributes and the intrinsic nature, and the like the yeah, just these. of the lower orders. So if the material order's innateness is to exist, is to be, the human order is the innateness of the human order includes being. Along with that, the like growing, which is the plant orders, the hope to live, which is the animal orders, and its own innateness, that is the um, the wish to the hope to live with fulfillment. So human order will include the innateness and the attributes of the lower orders and the intrinsic nature of the lower orders. Gun or attributes. Attributes refer to the relative powers of an entity and can be categorized as generative, degenerative, or mediative. This is the effect that arises from the coming together of more than one entity. So the effect that one entity has on the other entity, which is like in Hindi, they've used the word parasparta mein prabhav. The effect that one entity has due to the activity of the other is essentially the gun or the attribute. Now, I um, I could be a truthful person. That's not my attribute. The effect that my being truthful has on the other is the attribute, as Babaji explains it. So it refers to the relative power of the entity on another, which can cause some, visham, or madhyasthata. So generative is some. My being honest could help another trust me and want to, coexist with me further and hence evolve further. Me lying could have the other, have mistrust upon me and, not have fulfillment in the participation that it has with me. While, me being honest could help the other realize that honesty is it and it's a truth and we should maintain it. So anything that is permanent and recurring is mediator, is madhyasth. Swabhav or intrinsic nature. The essentiality of an order of nature itself is the intrinsic nature. So the maulikta or the mulya, the basic value, the value that an entity has in the universe is its essentiality, is the essence of its participation. So that is the intrinsic nature. The uniqueness of an entity while it's participating in the universe is its essentiality or its intrinsic nature. So every order has its own uniqueness, and each order has one uniqueness. So even though there are infinite number of particles in the material order, even though there are infinite species of plants or animals, however, the intrinsic nature of all the orders, like the material order has one intrinsic nature, the plant order has one intrinsic nature, and the animal order has the same intrinsic nature. So the usefulness of these attributes is the intrinsic nature. So going back to what the attributes was, so the relative powers of the entity, when two entities are participating in proximity to each other, there is an effect that one entity is producing on the other, one unit is producing on the other. This can be seen as, the external push, the external behavior. But that external behavior is a result of the intrinsic nature of that particle. So, which is why Babaji explains Swabhav as the usefulness of the attributes. So, my intrinsic nature of wanting to understand truth makes me behave like an honest person, and that is my intrinsic nature. So for me to have dheerta, virta, udarta, for me to have daya, kripa, karuna is my intrinsic nature. And that is the effect, like I would operate with those to have an effect and create more order in society. Now that will be the usefulness of my dheerta, of my uh, patience. Um, so which is why गुणों की उपयोगिता ही स्वभाव संज्ञा है. We discussed the concept of sthiti and gati also just a while back. Now, this is where it plays. My sthiti is my swabhav, is my intrinsic nature. And my gati, so my state is my swabhav, and the motion is my gun or the effect that I have in the society around me. So my honesty creates more order. That is the effect, the motion that comes about due to my state. Dharma or innateness itself is dharma. So, like we discussed earlier too, in the previous session, dharma is not something that is established. Dharma is something that is innately mine or innately of that order. So the form and attributes are impermanent, while the intrinsic nature and the innateness are permanent. So the material order exists. That is the rule. That's the law. The plants grow. The animals hope to live. And the humans want to hope to live with fulfillment. They exist, they grow, they want to live, and they also want to live with fulfillment. So the higher order has the innateness of, like, includes the innateness of the lower orders, but the material does not hope to live. The plant does not hope to live. So the material doesn't grow. The material, it only, sangathan and bigathan. It only comes together, or dissociates. The above classification of the universe is based on the constitution of koshas. I'd like to read the point below too. Kosha. Kosh refers to a definite, specific activity carried out with intent and purpose. The asset responsible for tendency is also referred to as kosh. So, kosh, as I understand it, is is a specific activity or a group of activities has been categorized as kosh, and this has been categorized by the Ved. So in the Upanishad, there's an elaborate explanation of the kosha, and because Babaji comes from the Vedic parampara, he has used the kosh and explained it as he's seen it, or as he wishes to categorize it, which is slightly different from parampara or from how it was explained in the Vedas. So kosh refers to specific activity or a group of activity that uh, you know that is carried out. And in Hindi, it reads uh, the sampada, the you know what would I call sampada? The asset. Okay, the asset that is responsible for that pravritti, that for that tendency is referred to as kosh. Now, kosh is basically fulfillment, like a state of fullness. So kosh denotes a state of fullness, like it's full of that activity. The pranmay kosh he is referring to is, a category which refers to inspirational fullness, which is categorized by energy, force, and magnetic force. This inspiration fullness forms the basis for mutual recognition among atomic particles, which are regulated by maintaining a definite distance from each other, leading to the formation of atoms. Thus, the tendency of being full of inspiration within the atom itself is pranmay kosh. So Babaji refers to the first and the lowermost category, which is called pranmay kosh. Pranmay kosh refers to the fullness of inspiration, which essentially, inspires the particle to act while maintaining a definite distance, and hence get in a state where it now coexists with other particles and forms the most elemental unit of formation, which is the atom. So this fullness of inspiration is being referred to as pranamay kosh, is being named the pranamay kosh. So the tendency of being full of inspiration within the atom itself is pranamay kosh. The infinite compositions in nature have differentiation based on the constitution of the five koshas. These five koshas are Pranmay Kosh, Annamay Kosh, Manomay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh, and Vigyanmay Kosh. So the large variety of units that we see in nature is because of difference in either two koshas being present, or three, or four, or five of the koshas being present. Of basically the categories of activity that the order, that the unit can perform. So moving further, where could we move down? The Pranmay Kosh, Annamay Kosh, and Manomay Kosh are evident in the insentient world, while the Manomay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh, and Vigyanmay Kosh become evident in the sentient world. So the Pranmay Kosh, like it was mentioned, is the fullness of inspiration, or the Pranmay Kosh refers to the inspiration to accept or reject, right? So when we look at the material order is said to have the Annamay Kosh and the Pranmay Kosh. It either accepts another atom to form a more stable entity, or it rejects a few particles to get to a more stabler form, right? And Annamay Kosh is the part that receives and discards. Sorry, my bad. So Annamay Kosh is what I just talked about, where it receives or discards the particle, while the Pranamay Kosh is the faculty to get inspiration to receive or discard, or reject the inspiration to receive or discard. So the Pranamay Kosh is the fullness of inspiration, while the Annamay Kosh is the activity of receiving or discarding another particle to get to a more stabler or to a lesser evolved form. We could move forward further here. The Manomay Kosh is the part that selects or makes a choice. So the ability of an order to now be able to make a choice is when Manomay Kosh starts. I mean, that's where we're categorizing Manomay Kosh. So Manomay Kosh is the category of units which can now select out of a range, of options to what they wish to select, which is going to nurture them further and which is going to evolve them further. while talking about uh, the uh, the pranamaya course, right? So while we're talking about the pranamaya course, it is like the entity is getting inspired through space. When we're talking about the annamaya course, the the two particles that are in each other's vicinity, they um, have to either accept or reject the particle. So in case the hydrogen and the oxygen atom get in the vicinity of each other, they have to either form a stabler molecule, or not if the oxygen gets interacts with another atom where it does not it cannot form a more stabler molecule, it rejects. So there's no option for the oxygen atom to not participate when it's in the interaction of the other atom. But when we get to a point where it's the plant order, so the I when I'm growing rice, uh, I'm gonna say, either add cow dung or add, urea, potash, and diammonium phosphate. I'm going to give the land a range of uh, nutrients, and it's the plant that chooses the things that would nourish it. So this faculty of being able to select from a range of nutrients available for nurturing itself is where we see the Manomay Kosh, or that's where we categorize all the units that fall in the Manomay Kosh. Likewise, the part that expresses happiness or unhappiness is Anandamay Kosh. So, how Babaji characterizes the units that fall in the category of Anandamay Kosh. Anandamay Kosh, all the activities that are associated with all these units that are in this category, they would perform an activity because it makes them happy or unhappy. Likewise, Vigyanmay Kosh, the parts that receive the essential knowledge is Vigyanmay Kosh. So now the animal order and the human order, which is not evolved to a point where it is now in a state of complete satisfaction, in a state of stability, that type of an entity, which is called Jivavastha or Ajagrit Jnanavastha, that these entities are categorized in the Anandamay Kosh, where all their activities will be to seek happiness. The cow would want to eat grass because it sort of satisfies it some way. It fulfills it some way. It the aspects of happiness and unhappiness, and something, or being able to plan for recurring happiness, does not get exhibited completely in the animal order. It gets better exhibited in higher evolved lesser humans, if I may. But the category of humans that now operates with essential knowledge, which is in a state of complete happiness, and every action will lead to happiness. That is, these humans are categorized in the form of in the category of Vigyanmay Kosh. So, reading the next point, the differentiation in the manifestation of koshas is the basis for differentiating orders in the universe. The material order is characterized by the manifestation of the Annamay Kosh and the Pranamay Kosh. These two koshas are found in the basic form of all material order, which is atom. So the Annamay Kosh and the Pranamay Kosh, the Pranamay Kosh of being inspired to act and having the inspiration and the ability to either get inspired or reject inspiration from another unit in the vicinity, and also being able to accept are the properties of are found in the material order. The activity of each atom demonstrate that it has a part that receives inspiration. Additionally, an atom's development or decline is due to its receiving and discarding activity, proving the presence of Annamaya Kosh in the material order. So the fact that an atom can reject or absorb another subatomic particle for it to get to a state of complete evolution or a stable state, that state is it receiving or discarding, it's receiving or discarding activity. And that's what proves the presence of Annamaya Kosh, the faculty to be able to select. The activeness of Annamaya Kosh is also the result of impulsion in the Pranamaya Kosh. So, because every entity is inspired to act, inspired to make an effort, have some resultant participation in its vicinity, and hereby produce a result. Now, that result is either more evolution or lesser evolution. So, this inspiration comes through the activities, comes through the unit being imbued in space, which is called the Pranamaya Kosh, and the activeness is exhibited by the Annamaya Kosh. Therefore, Annamaya Kosh and Pranamaya Kosh are inseparably related. It's the activities of the Pranamaya Kosh that inspire the Annamaya Kosh to select or reject. The biological order is characterized by the manifestation of three koshas: Annamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, and Manomaya Kosh. So, unlike the material order, the differentiating feature in the biological order is the activity of selection, which is the activity of Manomaya Kosh. This is evident in the form of different vegetation growing in the same soil, absorbing nutrients and rust according to their respective needs. So the mango tree and the neem tree grow side by side, and it's in on the same land. They just absorb different nutrients which they need. Hence, Nimoli is bitter and mango is sweet. So this faculty is being categorized as the Manomaya Kosh. So the biological order consists of all three koshas, that are the Annamaya Kosh, the Pranamaya Kosh, and the Manomaya Kosh. Right. The animal order and the delusional knowledge order have the activity of four koshas. That is the Annamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, and Anandamaya Kosh. So, reading on the further, the development of Anandamaya Kosh is the cause for sentience. And due to this sentience itself, happiness and unhappiness become apparent in the animal order. So, in the animal order, it can be seen that because I work in the Gaushala, the power of the rod is very visible. So, the fact that getting hit is makes the cow unhappy, which is why without having to hit, the rod really works. The stick works. So it's the want to live with happiness or unhappiness, and in the animal order, it basically gets them by. It basically gets them to a point of eating to survive. It basically gets them to the point of procreating to keep the species alive. So they can't have they can't plan for recurring happiness, but they seek happiness, which is why they eat, which is why they procreate, which is why they sleep, or which is why they run for life. Now, and likewise, unhappiness makes them move away from the stick. In the delusional knowledge order, sorry, I was calling it the lesser human. In the delusional knowledge order, the faculty of wanting recurring happiness, and which is why I just hoard the grain of rice, or like basically try and plan for a better experience. All that comes into a delusion, comes in the purview of a delusional human order. But the core for the core for the performance of that activity is also to seek happiness and to avoid unhappiness. So all these are apparent in the animal order and the delusional order, and these are being categorized as the Anandamaya Kosh. So the units of the animal order have the capability of enjoying the four instincts of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating because of this sentience. So with Anandamaya Kosh, the darshan also proposes that the conscious entity, that is this atom with the 61 particles, that is the Jivan, now you know starts participating and is able to now the use the organism's brain, the animal's brain or the human's brain, to be able to exhibit its glory. So this sentience um, comes about in the animal order and the delusional human order and the human order, and this is being categorized as the Anandamaya Kosh. The awakened human has all the five koshas manifested, or these five koshas are active and expressed in them. So the Annamaya Kosh, the Pranamaya Kosh, the Manomaya Kosh, the Anandamaya Kosh, and the Vijnanamaya Kosh are all present in the awakened human, where now this Vijnanamaya Kosh brings about a complete awakening of the human, where he now understands uh, the complete the the essential laws that govern the universe and space. So and the coexistence that exists. So there are no laws that go on the space. I'm sorry. So uh, the awakened human falls in the category of the Vijnanamaya Kosh, where it's this knowledge about all the other three orders and how they coexist. It's the knowledge about how I need to participate as a human with these three orders and make them more prosperous. And apart from that, also it's my understanding of the laws that govern my behavior with the other humans that are in my vicinity. So in my vicinity and the larger human order. So it's the Vijnanamaya Kosh that helps, it's this wisdom that helps me perform better and create more order in society. And all these awakened humans fall in the category, like these activities are categorized as Vijnanamaya Kosh. So the awakening of the Vijnanamaya Kosh is the cause of essential knowledge, that is knowledge, wisdom, and science. So which is being called the Gyan, Vivek, and the Vigyan. Gyan being the knowledge of existence as it is, which is in its coexistent form. Wisdom being having an understanding of the participation with the other human order, and science being the participation with all the other three orders, that is the plant order, the animal order, and the material order. So wisdom and science in cumulation would allow for understanding of the cause and remedy of happiness, leading to the realization of happiness, peace, contentment, and bliss. So this is where like darshan just seems so full that it just uh, has become, a goal that is so far away from where I stand, and is that it gives you so much direction in life, and like a good project to be able to do all life and maybe many more lifetimes from where I see myself stand right now. So this ability to know how to perform, like how to interact with other humans, how to interact with the other, with the animal order, the plant order, and the material order, and in a sense have this understanding of the cause and the effects that my participation would have, and hence having a better estimation and performing the activity just right, so that the resultant uh, so that the result that is produced is in complete alignment with my estimation, with what I had with what I had perceived. So getting to a state where getting to a state of complete realization of the laws that govern my participation and govern the existence leads me to happiness, peace, contentment, and bliss, which is Sukh, Shanti, Santosh, and Anand, and gets me to a state of complete stability. So all four orders have their own differentiating features, which are related with their form, attribute, intrinsic nature, and dharma. Form, that's roop. Form in all the four orders is determined by differentiation of the shape, volume, and density. So roop is the akar, aitan, ghan, and all four orders are differentiated because the material order and the basic uh, unit of the material order is the atom. All atoms are have different forms uh, when compared to each other and also to the other orders. Likewise, the plants have different orders, different root, different forms, and so does basically all units. So every unit, apart from all the units that fall under the same category of atoms, like all the oxygen atoms would have the same root, but and all the molecules of water would have the same root. Likewise, like carbon is structured in the same way in all the diamonds that are found on Earth. But when it comes to the plant order, there is differentiation between like how I think uh, Drishta Ben had also mentioned, like one leaf is different from the other, right? So root is different to each unit when it gets to the plant order, but root is the same, form is the same in the material order. So all four orders have their own differentiating feature, which are related with their forms, attributes, intrinsic nature, and dharma. Um, Going to attributes, I'll come back to that point. So gun or attributes in all four orders are characterized by the differentiation of generative, degenerative, or mediative. So these are relative powers which arise from the coming together of more than one entity. So like we discussed earlier, attributes of the four orders are basically the effect that it has on the other, and they're of three types: generative, degenerative, or mediative. So when we talk about two atoms coming together, there could be a possibility that two atoms come together and help it evolve to the 61 units and help it become the most stable entity. It could be degenerative, where it takes it further away from that prescribed number, or mediative. So gets them to a point where now the stable entity, which is the Jivan Parmanu, is now going to stay as the Jivan Parmanu. The attributes in the form of the plant order could possibly, there could be, um, a, a kind of grass that sort of eats away the the vegetable that I'm trying to grow because it grows too much. And so or there could be uh, when the plant is interacting with the cow, then so the cow won't eat grass that is not good for its body. But say I consume a plant which is poisonous to my body, the humans, because they have free will to choose. Now, if I consume that, it could be degenerative for me. Likewise, if I get killed by a lion, I would it would be degenerative. And likewise, the cow giving me milk is generative for me. So basically when two orders interact or the order interacts within itself, it either causes more, like it's either generative, degenerative, or mediative. Mediative is being referred to as once achieved, that state is now permanent and in its cyclicity would be generative and degenerative. So a plant growing could be called, its samgun is the faculty of it being uh, growing, and the plant dying could be degenerative, and the the faculty, I mean the principle of the seed growing into a plant and then dying again and then growing again, this cyclicity is what is madhyast, is what is mediative. So generative, the attribute that assists creation activity, is referred to as generative. Degenerative or Visham, the attribute that assists dissolution activity, is referred to as degenerative. The attribute that assists sustainment activity is referred to as mediative. So, like we discussed, everything that like the
Vinayak bhai, your voice is not audible. There is some issue here. I think mm, we are almost, it's about time as well. Uh, so I think we may want to conclude today's session now. I think the whole idea of this chapter is to give us the whole picture of the universe. And somehow this, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so it looks like uh, Vinayak got disconnected. So we will need to end the session today. Uh, this chapter actually gives the large overview of the universe, but at the same time it doesn't overwhelm you because it puts the human's position at the center. So at the end of reading this chapter, one gets the confidence that the human is at the center of it all, and then has the capacity to understand and comprehend it and thereby live harmoniously. So I think we have about a page of or so left of this, so which Vinayak Bhai should be able to complete in the initial few minutes of the next session. Next session will be done by Sanjana. It is a little change from the original plan. Earlier, Shubha Didi was planning to do. Now, Sanjana Chopra from Chandigarh, she will be doing this session on Manav Sahaj Prayojan. Right, so that is going to happen now. So, uh, yeah, Vinayak, you are back. So you were just discussing that since the time is over now, so maybe last one or two pages you could do in the next session. Is that all right? You're mute.
Oh, sorry. Right. I do that in the next session. Sorry, I could finish on time.
Okay, no, not a problem. Completely understandable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Rakesh bhai, can I make a request, please?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Maybe I haven't read the books. बहुत पहले पढ़ी थी तो बहुत ज़्यादा रजिस्टर्ड नहीं हुआ था, और मुझे जिस ईज से आप बोल रहे हैं कि इसको पढ़ के काफ़ी सांत्वना होती है कि ह्यूमन इज़ एट द सेंटर, बट आई एम फीलिंग अ लिटिल ओवरवेल्म्ड बिकॉज मुझे काफ़ी चीज़ें बहुत अच्छे से समझ नहीं आई है.
Mhm.
I thought it was very conceptual. And is it possible to kind of bring more examples of life and all? Somehow that's my learning process. It's just a request. शब्दों के थ्रू मुझे बहुत जल्दी समझ नहीं आता है, बट रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल्स के थ्रू जल्दी समझ आ जाता है. नहीं तो इज
See,
इट पॉसिबल
yeah, so one
revisit
thing
is
is
this?
like, for example, when somebody is describing, say, what is light, okay? So, right, so clearly, there is, you need to describe the phenomena of the light. You need to describe what does it mean? What is illumination? You need to describe about that. I think the what needs to happen, there's not much real life example over here, right? When you talk about, okay, what is
Yeah,
material
I
order?
see that.
I'm not. Yeah.
I
So
see that.
where
But or
so
maybe there was
but
too
if
much
you
of
talk
science in
about,
it, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, so you are getting an overall picture of where what is. So that is the basic idea of this chapter. That overall it says that, okay, there are two realities and there is an emergence in in this existence, and this is how they are put together. Okay. And so that is basically is the purpose of this chapter, is explaining that, okay, this is the basic thing is सत्ता में संप्रत प्रकृति है और उसका एक इमरजेंस है, इसका completeness का डायरेक्शन है. There is a direction for completeness in it, right? And it describes you the beauty of this structure, that these are the four aspects of this, and these four aspects actually evolve, right? And there is a connectivity between complementariness and usefulness among each other. And there you basically get the idea that right from the level of an atom, then to the molecule, there is actually not much
No, I
example or
see. I
real
got
life.
that. I got those parts in terms of that overview, but probably I'm getting stuck because my base in science is negligible. Is those when it goes into those definitions of what is Rashmi, what is this, and what is that? Probably I'll need to just read it again and be with it one more time, just to
Yeah,
get my
see,
own.
it's not,
Yeah.
so see, it's really up to us how much depth we want to get to these concepts of science and relate to them. Personally, I have not gone through the science so much either to be able to say that, yes, I understand science. You have a cat behind you, or a dog.
No, no, that's my. I'm in yeah, my son's dog. Yes. So
Okay.
yes,
So, so sort of
yes.
activity there. So what I was saying was that basically, to be able to say that I understand science, it probably would take 15-20 years, right? Or even those people who have given their lives to science are not able to make the statement they know science. That's probably the difficulty, the way in which science is taught, and so on. So at this point in time, when we are trying to understand, read this book in a very simple fashion is what my, like, for example, it is a very conversational book. It doesn't need to be made complex. Babaji used to say that it is, ये simple है, इसको complicate मत बनाओ. This is actually simple. So somewhere we actually have the habit of complicating this thing, but actually this is a very human-centric language, and it needs to be understood that way. To be able to say that we will actually understand the scientific depth of light by reading four lines over here, I think it is asking for too much. Okay. To be able to say that we will actually understand the all the physics of that is there in this, I think that is not the expectation either. The important thing is that we get the overall drift, right? There is a purpose inherent and there is a directionality for completeness. there are four aspects that come together, and there is an evolution that is happening, right? And we are in a stage of evolution, right? If we do this placement of our own selves and see that there are people who are ahead us, there are people for whom we may be ahead, right? That is our placement, that is our mulyankan. And once we have that mulyankan of our own selves, we get a sense of responsibility for those who are behind us, and also get uh, inspiration from those who are
Inspiration.
ahead of us. Right. So that is the basic purpose of this chapter, to actually get the things, get the perspective, right, of the larger. One is that you see the whole picture and you become overwhelmed, right? See, other is that you see the picture and see your placement in it, right? Then you say, okay, this, like what Vinayak was saying, by actually reading this chapter, now I know where I am and where
Hmm.
this gives me the direction, right? So, so that is the basic idea over here. So I
Hmm.
would actually request that be more patient with it. We are all there to help each other in whatever
Yeah.
possible way that we can, right? Uh, I know that Babaji's language is, it takes time before you become comfortable with it, right? And our idea of translating it to English is not to simplify it. That's not the idea. Our idea is to make it accessible, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
No,
that's
I
the,
like the idea of that you suggested, that to read it, not to make it complex, and we will not understand everything. For me, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not understanding most of it. But yeah, just to be focused on the essence and the broad overview of it. Yeah, I think that speaks to me. So I shall read one more time and see where it
yeah,
goes.
thank you, Renu Didi.
Thank
So
you.
thank you
Thank you.
everyone, and I hope that in the next session we'll have some more time for Q&A with Nivita and Vinayak as well. Yeah. So bye for now and namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.